Let's talk a little bit about case study 101. In concept, talking to customers and identifying great case study candidates is very attractive, very seductive, because who doesn't want a customer saying nice things about your product or service? In practice, there's a lot of internal angst or reluctance about reaching out to customers to do a case study. One take is that you don't want to poke the beast. They're happy, they're doing their thing, they're using their product. You don't want to remind them that there's reasons for them to ask questions or complain about the products. There's a little bit of reluctance there. Sometimes companies are just afraid or they just don't know how to do it. The question is, how do you identify the best, and I put best in quotation marks, the best case study candidates? Because I imagine that it's not a one size fits all proposition. You want to highlight different use cases and different ways that companies are using a product. What's the process in terms of identifying potential case study candidates and then effectively reaching out to the ones that you think will participate in the process?
It starts by identifying your goals. What types of stories are you looking to tell? And then creating a short list of clients who fit that criteria. Now, speaking about criteria as well, something that's mission critical to establish is what does a win actually look, because there can be disagreements between sales and marketing. Marketing will go to sales, say, hey, we'd really like to interview this customer. Sales will say, come back in 6 months. The account will be better in 6 months. They're going through renewal now. Come back. Like having some shared criteria for what constitutes a win. What does a win actually look like? And that can vary from company, but that could be a minimum threshold for key KPIs. That could be a minimum relational milestone, be it amount of time with you or the fact that they've just upgraded service. So that's an indicator that they're happy. But look at your communications, look at the natural progression of your relationships, establish some hard coded criteria that is shared, that is centralized for this is what a win actually looks like. From there, build your shortlist. Who is happy and who is recent? Because you don't want to go back in the time machine too far. If they had their win 3 years ago, we're in B2B. The odds of that person even still being at the company are extraordinarily low. The odds of them remembering that experience are also extraordinarily low. So, one of the things that we encourage clients to do is to map out their cadence of communications and have some accountabilities to those who have those conversations for asking some indicator questions that will give you a little insight into, okay, is this a company that might be ready to do a story or might be willing to contribute? There's some other areas that are low hanging fruit, especially if you're just getting started. If you have a G2 Capterra Trust Radius profile, look at people who've already proactively given you reviews. They've
Mm-hmm.
put up their hand in some small way to say, I'm willing to do this. Another way to, let's say you're like, we have no insight into our customer base at all. We haven't been diligent with this in the slightest. Run a customer feedback survey. It's one of the simplest and most effective things we've ever done for a client. They're reticent to do it and then they loved it. Now it's a quarterly thing for them. Is we ran a customer feedback survey. We used it to identify the types of wins and things that existed in their database. We had one question that just said, would you be willing to share your experience with others? Just a yes, no box. Would you be open to being featured in a success story and share your experience with others? And we got many qualified customers putting up their hands and coming to them in that case saying, yes, we would be willing to share. So start with criteria, build your short list, look at the low hanging fruit. And then the trepidation around making the ask, I understand. But so much of that fear of making the ask or fear of poking the bear comes because companies just don't feel like they know how. And a very simple rubric for doing this: be personal, be specific, be short. Why them? Why now? What's involved? What's next? If you can answer those questions in 6 sentences, you're already miles ahead of the average person making a mile long ask and tripping over the shoelaces in the process.